I'm live. Welcome to my kitchen. Welcome to the Lace on Race kitchen, where we serve up kind candor, hesed, and a whole lot more. If you enjoy this video, I invite you to click subscribe, either here in Facebook or also on YouTube. There's a lot to talk about today because I am so excited. First of all, you guys all have to check out my jumpsuit. It is in a shade of pink that if I were a NASCAR driver, I would absolutely insist that they give me a pink jumpsuit. A dusty pink, not Pepto Bismol pink. I have standards. Standards, I tell you. Actually, I've been thinking a lot about this whole race car analogy that we had been talking about. I think it really, really works. And I think that it's another way of visualizing what we do here at Lace on Race. We talk about walking together, we talk about staying in the car, and now we talk about being on a track and in the pit crew. There's so much more about the pit crew that I could talk about, but I'm not going to bore you too much. What I do want to talk about, though, is that even beyond the pit crew, there are designers and mechanics that get the car ready to go. It is really important that not just the car be serviced as the car goes round and round the track, but that the car itself is functionally and structurally designed, structurally ready to go, that everything we know to do before we get on the track to go round and round is actually done. This is a big deal. Preparation is key. Next week, I'm going to have a little bit of fun. I'm going to write up some scripts for three things, three of my favorite things to do when I'm being whimsical and doing the self care that everyone insists that I do. One of them, nails. The other one, hair. The last one, makeup. I have had to get gussied up a lot more than I used to because I'm doing the Lace on Race videos. And you know me, everything is fodder, everything is a lesson. And so I thought about the lessons that you can get from these tools of self care. The preparation work that goes into putting on your nail polish so it lasts a week instead of one day, being really honest about what you're facing in the mirror before you put on makeup, eyeliner and eyelashes and all that fun stuff. Before you can do your best job, you need to know what you're starting with. And again, prep work is also important. And hair, how much to conceal, how much to reveal. They say that hair is our crowning glory. And so when we think about who we are in relationship to Lace on Race, what is our crown? What is our glory? How much are we willing to tell the truth about just how, yeah, I woke up like this? No, you didn't. I certainly didn't. And so being able to be willing to be vulnerable, to take off literal or metaphorical head coverings so people can see all of you. There is nothing wrong with getting gussied up. I kind of like it. It's fun. And I do a lot of thinking while I get gussied up. And so we're going to be doing that next week. And it's going to be fun. Actually, there was part of me that was thinking, I should do one of those makeup tutorials that everybody does. And I'm actually really enjoying them. There are about 4 or 5 YouTube creators that I watch religiously now because it's like, the most important thing is not, ethics or praxis. The most important thing is knowing exactly where to put the blush on my chipmunk cheeks. Presentation is important. So are the tools in order to do it, and so is the execution. We're going to be talking about all of those things in a whimsical and entertaining and I hope engaging way. I will not do a makeup tutorial because none of y'all need to see what this looks like barefaced. But there are lessons to be learned, and we will learn them. This week, though, before we do the whimsical stuff, and it's going to be fun, I promise you, I want to talk about things that are not bad, but they're certainly serious. I want to talk about, as we go into Terry Real, we want to talk about full respect living, what that looks like. But in order to talk about full respect living, we need to talk about getting to the tools that we can have before we embark on what, for a lot of us, is going to be, if not a difficult journey, certainly an intense one. Full respect living is, in a nutshell, nonviolence. Nonviolence outside and nonviolence between your ears. Some of us are good at one or the other. We need to get good and reflexive at both. So, in order to talk about full respect living, we also need to talk about two things. One sounds great, and it's going to be fun to talk about this. But the other one is one that will make you clench up like crazy. It's going to activate you, it's going to trigger you. But in order to talk about the second piece, we have to talk about the first piece. In order to talk about courage, we're going to have to talk about cowardice. And I want you to be able to stick with me while we do. Cowardice is a heavy term, and everybody wants to think that they have a really good working definition of what cowardice is, and nobody wants that label stuck on them, right? Everybody wants to be the hero of their own story. I totally get that. I certainly want to be the hero of my own story. But in order to become heroic, we need to figure out where the weeds are that block us or make us ambivalent about that courage that will lead ultimately to full respect living. There are some things that once you inculcate and internalize an unshakable ethos of full respect living and the courage that's necessary for full respect living, you can't go back to cowardice again. It'll be impossible. And for some people, that's an encouragement and an invitation. For some people, that's a threat. And we need to be able to speak about that squarely, because the whole point of learning full respect living and winning strategies and losing strategies and cowardice and courage is in service to the North Star. Like I always say, what we bring to you here will indeed permeate the rest of your life if you allow it. It will invigorate your relationships. It will bring you a sense of more self efficacy and self agency. And that's awesome. In service, always primarily to the North Star, lessening and mitigating the harm perpetuated by Black and Brown people, perpetuated in. Wait, I'm gonna stop. Did you hear what I said? This is what happens when I don't have a script. Lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and Brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. See, I am capable of making mistakes. I'm the one that wrote it and I still messed it up. Let's say it all together. Lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and Brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. I'm going to show some of my cards right now. Cowardice is one of the tools of white supremacy. It shows up in different kinds of ways. It shows up in indecision. It shows up in the ambivalence that I was talking about. It shows up in paralysis. It shows up in not wanting to pick a side. If we are engaged in full respect living, that is the only side we need. We are going to be looking at the dictionary definitions, and I found some interesting ones because there's the ones that you find at dictionary.com, but then there are some other ones that go a little bit deeper. And you know me, if I can't go vertical, I got to go home. And then we're going to look at some really interesting facets of courage, because I'm going to spend some time on cowardice, and then we're going to put that aside. We're going to put that aside and talk about the courage that is necessary to embark into full respect living as an everyday, non negotiable, internalized part of your life that will indeed impact your racial justice journey. This is such a big deal. It is really easy right now, as I'm thinking about how I'm going to be presenting this stuff to you, to glide over the cowardice part. And like I said, we're not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I don't want you guys fixating on it. But I want you to know what it looks like, what it feels like, what it tastes like, so that when you get to courage, you're going to know. And it's like, then you can start kind of doing self assessments and self analysis and self scans. From what stance am I coming from? Am I coming from a stance of courage, or am I coming from a stance of cowardice? It is impossible. It is impossible to do a sustained and durable racial justice praxis in chronic cowardice. I want to make sure that, I'm not asking for anything unrealistic, and I'm not setting a platonic ideal that people will go, oh, I'll never be able to live up to that. And it gives them an excuse to bail out of the car. All of us have had places where we have fallen short of the goal. And that is where self care comes in. That is where self love and self acceptance and even self forgiveness comes in. But all of those things that can allow, if we let it, for self indulgence and self aggrandizement needs to be welded to accountability and responsibility. As we go into the summer, as we go into the year last year that was called the Black Spring, it was actually more like the Black Spring Summer, but the media has to have a catchphrase. If you remember last year, we did the Vox article, and if anybody in leadership is watching this, could you please drop the Vox article below? If they don't see it and they don't do it, I'll do it after I finish this video. I talked about the difference between slow cookers, and I said wok before, but some people had a problem with me my using the word wok. So we'll just use microwave. We'll use the Panasonic microwave. Are you a Hamilton Beach slow cooker, or are you a Panasonic microwave? And I liked that illustration at the time. I still like it, actually, but I want to add a third element as we start looking at full respect living and courage and cowardice, so that we can start with intention and relish, and whether or not you guys are completely ready for it, losing strategies and winning strategies. Here's the third one: a hot pot. I want you guys to be hot pots. Hot pots do it all. They can pressure cook, they can steam, they can slow cook, they can do it all. What it takes is discernment. What it takes is looking at the vegetable and seeing whether or not it needs a quick steam or a long braise. There's a difference between putting a microwave chicken in there and hoping to get something and it's not completely browned, or braising a chicken, or putting it in the hot pot and pressure cooking it so it goes a little bit faster, sometimes a lot faster. You need to know what the hot pot needs, and you need to know the instructions. You need to know all the buttons on the hot pot. There are a lot of people, when the hot pot craze came around a couple of years ago, they all went to Costco and bought the hot pot. I know that they all went to Costco to buy the hot pot because it took me a long time to get a hot pot. Every single time I was going, I'm ready. I am ready. I'm ready to jump on the bandwagon for a hot pot. They were gone. So lots of people bought them. They bought them last year, about the time of the Black Spring. Enjoy. How many of you are using them now? How many of them know? How many of you know what all the buttons are for? We do this. We get involved in a craze. We get involved in everybody else is doing it. The neighbor to the left of me and the neighbor to the right of me, they have hot pots. Why don't I have one? And so you get the hot pot with the best of intentions. You not only get the hot pot, you get the hot pot cookbook, so you can learn all the different things you can do with your hot pot. and then it gathers dust on your counter or in your pantry. I I do. I have I have two cookbooks for hot pots actually, and I've got the hot pot. It does me no good if I don't learn how to use the hot pot because it is kind of intimidating. I mean, the pressure cooker part particularly is intimidating. But let's talk about pressure. If you have the controls in place, if you lock it down, if you stick around and make sure that nothing awful happens, pressure cookers are really great tools. But you need to know what you can and can't put in there. You need to know how long to go, and you need to trust the process. And that is sometimes a problem. You know, if it's not a hot pot, if it's just a pot on the stove, right? You can check. You can kind of go, you can taste it a little bit. But with a pressure cooker, once it's set, it's done. You really do compromise, and it can be sometimes very dangerous if you try to open a pressure cooker or a hot pot that's working as a pressure cooker before it's time. There are things that are worth waiting for, and there are worth allowing the flavors to marry. Everybody wants to be the microwave. Everybody wants to be and I'm trying to find another word for wok because I think the microwave is a good illustration, but woks while you're doing it super high heat, and you're putting it in there and they get crispy. Um, I think that's a good illustration too. And I think what I might do for my own cultural tradition is find some Native American and or African analogies or similar tools, and I'll start using those words. But I do think that it's important. You are going at super high heat to do a wok well, and that can be dangerous too. So we want to be able to cook like we want to be able to be in pit crew well and safely, safe-ish. And we're going to talk about that this week. But the first thing we're going to do is to talk about full respect living, nonviolence, nonviolence in your outside life and between your ears. For someone like me, who is a committed pacifist, the outside parts are super easy. You're never going to have to worry about whether or not I'm going to own a gun. I'm not gonna. Ah, but this can be a rapier sword. And I know it. And I know I'm capable of it. I do not practice full respect nonviolent living in my speech and in my thought life because I don't have any other options. I know fully what I'm capable of. I know the person I am capable of being. Just like my face and my nails and my fake hair, I come to you honestly and authentically, and I hope you feel it. But by no means do I come at you naturally. This is not the hair I was born with. I was not born with these lips. I was not born with these nails. They took effort and intention and time. So, a lot of the things that we are learning together are not going to feel natural to you. You're going to twitch. You're going to shake a little bit. You're going to be activated and triggered. And so, while we're talking about full respect living, we're also going to be talking about some of the virtues that are necessary in order to do the work well, which means we're going to be going into some old pin posts because not all of you guys have read them and you need to. So, if I have to walk you through them, that's what we're going to do. Meleza pulled out 4 for me. So, while we're talking about this series this week, I'm also going to be putting 1111 up together. We are all going to get inculcated in this because it's crucial. Yeah, I know. I'm going to talk about the last few weeks. You knew I would. It was just a question of when. Why are we hitting so hard on it and keeping bringing it up and bringing it up? Well, because there's just so many lessons to be gleaned from it. And when you have a situation like the ones that we have weathered individually and collectively as a group, they are only of value to the extent that we learn from them and apply what we learn going forward, not just in the space of Lace on Race, not just in this lab, not just in this rehearsal space, not just in the pit crew, but the whole point of it is to take it outside and to learn how to do it fast. Because there are times when you need to be a pressure cooker. You need to get it in and you need to get it out fast. There are some things that we can talk about where we learn the basics quickly, but as you consider them more and you become more and more adept, and it's cumulative work. So the more you know, the more you can stack on top, right? This is now my official plug for Chef's Table because we do get deeper there. Oh my goodness, this week I have been so amazed at the incredible depth of responses that we see on Chef's Table. And we are going to be moving away from those super considered responses. Since we opened up the bistro, um, we have encouraged people to cross post on the website, cross post at the bistro, cross post at the takeout window. But kind of like what I said last summer, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to give a full 8-course meal to people who only want a corn dog and a Sprite. Takeout window stuff, right? If you want the full meal, you need to be seated in the bistro. So I encourage you, if you are not already registered for the bistro and you want to learn how to be a hot pot, be in the pit crew, then you register. We need your real name. We need your real mug, because we're becoming a deeper and more committed community. For those of you who are in the bistro um, and you have not been active lately, I encourage you to become active. And for those of you who are active, you guys kept me up last night. Every single time I read a post and then I had to put down the laptop and just contemplate it for a couple of minutes. And then I'd do another one and do another one because we can do that in the bistro in a way that we can't do it at takeout window. And also yesterday, guess what I got to do? I did my first 2 interviews for Chef's Table. They survived. Oh, it was awful. I was terrible. Oh, I was just so mean. I had a face like this the whole time. No, no. No. If you have applied for Chef's Table, I am looking so forward to scheduling a meeting with you so that we can abide together for a few minutes. So you can tell me why you want to be there, so that you can give me your feedback and I can just love on you. Chef's Table is going to be an entirely different experience. Every single person that is seated in Chef's Table has made a commitment to the health and longevity and sustainability of this space. Our Western Star has deeply internalized what North Star living looks like. There will be no hollies at Chef's Table. You don't have to worry about that. There will be no hollies in the bistro. But we were going to learn how to serve the hollies of the world while keeping ourselves intact, because that is part of the fear. We'll talk about that when we talk about cowardice, because a lot of times what can look like cowardice is fear of losing yourself, your self concept. And to hold on to it, you've got to turn away or run away or blow up or shut down. It is possible to do this work and stay fully yourself, fully, fully, fully yourself. And then there's Chef's Table, where we not only are fully ourselves, but we encourage everybody to become part of the co creation, where you are mentored and you mentor. Everybody brings something to Chef's Table. There are some of you who are going to be mentoring me and holding and keeping me accountable, because guess what? Insofar as I am executive director of Lace on Race Center for Racial Equity, I'm also a community member. I'm also one of you. I walk just like everyone else and I stumble and I make mistakes. Remember earlier in this video when I completely botched the North Star? I make mistakes all the time, but I course correct. I course correct, which is what we're going to be talking about when we get to courage. That's also part of full respect living. When we have this under our belts, then we can move to first losing strategies. And basically cowardice is just an umbrella for losing strategies, all 5 of them. And then we're going to get to full respect living, where it is an amazing amalgamation of full respect living. We're adding 3 things to winning strategies. We have talked about going after what you want, shifting from complaint to request, responding with generosity at the core. It's a nice way of saying Hesed. Empowering each other to be our best selves, and also, and most crucially, cherishing each other, cherishing the journey that we're on, cherishing the woman or the man that you were, that you are, and that you're going to be. And we're going to add not 3, but actually 4 essential skills that are married to winning strategies. What healthy self esteem and self worth looks like, doing a deep dive as to what self esteem and self worth are and are not. It's one of those terms of art that has suffered from mission drift, and we need to talk about that. We're going to talk about healthy boundaries, not just what you make sure doesn't get in, but also a boundary so that the worst of you doesn't leak out. We, in our language, we call it slosh. Staying in the circle of health, staying in the circle of repair, connection, disconnection, repair, learning how to complete that circle every single time. We saw what it looked like when it didn't happen. We need to make sure that we know what it looks like and that we practice it. And finally, practicing relational mindfulness, huge part of full respect living. Being able not to be driven and slaves to the first whoosh of emotion, of trigger, of activation, whether it be in your internal life or being a walk or a microwave outside. Those first whooshes of emotion, well, sometimes they even feel good. I mean, sometimes it feels good to be pissed off, it feels good to be resentful, it feels good to be mad. That's not in service to the North Star. How to channel these things so that they are in service to the North Star. It's okay to be angry, but is it harnessed to North Star living in Hesed? It's okay to say, I wish people would do more of what I am learning, but to be able to continue your practice without resentfulness or contempt for people who are not walking the way you would want them to walk. One of the things we saw a lot of in these past weeks has indeed been contempt. You cannot live in contempt and also live in North Star full respect living. You cannot. So that's something we're going to talk about. And then finally, going after what you want. And in our case, it's lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated again by white people and white supremacy. Lessening and mitigating the harm endured by Black and brown people, perpetuated by white people and white supremacy. That is something that you need to want, and not just because everybody else bought the hot pot. Am I right? You need to be able to do this work well. In the Vox article of last year, we talked about the perils of doing things in half measure. Sometimes it's worse than not doing it at all. And we're going to talk about it all. Wow. Everyone has been asking me, Lace? Hi. Yeah. What? Are you sure they're ready for it? I'm pretty sure that they're not. But we've waited a really long time. And funky things happened. And we weren't ready. So, in the same way as my faith tradition says something that is both an invitation and also sometimes people think of it as a discouragement or a threat. Be perfect as my heavenly parent is perfect. Yeah, huh? No, we're not looking for perfection in the world sense of the term. We're talking about being best case right where you are. And then as you know more, you get to redefine and level up on what best case is. And that's what we're talking about. We have seen so many cautionary tales. What does best practice look like? What do case studies look like? And that is why we have been hitting on what went down so much. It has been an extended case study. Now we no longer can say we don't know what worst case scenario can look like. And maybe there's even a worst case scenario, but we need to be prepared for it. We need to be prepared for when the hot pot explodes, when the pressure cooker explodes. Who are you going to be? Because at the end of it, this is what we talk about so much. Not what you're going to do, because you can do that stuff, but we want you to do it well. And before you can answer that question of what you're going to do, we insist here at Lace on Race that the crucial question, the crucial conversation is who are you going to be? Who are you going to be? That's a big deal. And so we will look at full respect living and cowardice and courage as hot pots in the pit crew. I'm just going to use all the metaphors and just mangle them and just do a big mashup. I love you guys so much, and I cannot wait to look at what you guys come up with at your engagements, how deep you guys are going to go with this. It's going to be terrific. Again, if you like what you have been listening to and you want more, make sure that you go to laceonrace.com, laceonrace.com/groups, which is our bistro. And here at the takeout window, facebook.com/laceonrace. If you like, click subscribe, and that way you'll make sure you'll get all of the content. It is always my pleasure spending time with you. Always my pleasure spending time with you. I want to see you all in the bistro, and then I want to give you my finest bow as I seat you in chef's table so that you can learn to serve.